Hello, listeners. If you've enjoyed these narrations, please click on that like and subscribe button. You know, I've been in a bad situation before, but never anything like this. Let me give you some brief context. About 2 weeks ago, I was running dangerously low on funds. I guess the demand for a shady hitman wasn't exactly at an all-time high. At that point, I was willing to take any job that was less dangerous than assassinating the president. I got exactly what I wanted about a week after the eviction notice came in. $20,000. One guy. And as far as I could tell, no baggage attached. It was just some random asshole. Or at least that's how they presented it to me. Now, the person, or people, who had sent me this offer seemed a bit more secretive than the usual customer. I mean, I usually expect a fake name at the very least, but these guys didn't even give an offer of an alias. Whatever, I thought. It is what it is, right? They didn't seem to have a name for the target either, simply referring to him as the Freak. It was weird to say the least, but beggars can't be choosers, right? They wired me $10,000 up front. The rest would come after I'd finished the job. Those were the conditions anyway. I started driving out to the address they had given me, where the target was supposed to be. They told me that I should be there by midnight, so of course I arrived around 10 p.m. in order to set up. My loadout was a bit heavier than usual. I was thinking this guy had to be armed or trained, something, since they were willing to pay me a shitload. I was packing a silenced Beretta, a fully automatic CZ-75, a Remington 870, a scoped M14, a butterfly knife, and some brass knuckles if it had come close to quarters. Well, that isn't exactly all. There was one more thing that I'd brought with me. It was a grenade. Now, I didn't think that I'd actually need it. And honestly, I didn't really want to use it. It was just there in case shit went beyond south. I hid myself as best as I could in the darkness of the dingy factory, and I waited until midnight. At about 12:11, the rusty doors flung open, and I watched through my scope as an abnormally tall figure wearing a winter break and slacks bursted in. From the description that they had gave me, this was definitely the guy. I mean, how many people are 6'10"? The thing is, he was moving way too fast for me to get a clean shot, and I didn't want to risk blowing my position. In fact, he was sprinting, for whatever reason. However, he did appear to be unarmed, so I did let myself relax a bit. I lost him when he was running into the door on my left. Moving quietly, I pulled out my Beretta and stuck my CZ-75 into my holster, and I followed him. Now, this place that he had entered was pitch black, but I had planned for that. I put out a pair of night vision goggles and started traversing around the area. It appeared that he had led me into a hallway. However, I couldn't find the guy. This is when the first peculiar thing struck out to me. How the hell was he seeing anything in here? My muscles were cut short when I heard a shrill screaming coming from somewhere at the end of the hall. Carefully, I'd maneuvered my way down and peeked down both the left and right branches of the corridor. The screaming was definitely coming from the room to the left. As I got about halfway there, it just stopped suddenly. I froze in my steps. What the hell is going on here? It was at that moment when a body came flying out of the room, and I nearly shouted out of shock, but I did manage to control myself. I watched as what appeared to be a 20-something male hit the wall just in front of me and bounce off, face planting hard onto the concrete. It made a sick, squishing noise as it did. Getting a better view of the body, I noticed one of the legs seemed to be crumpled, like if the Terminator himself had grabbed onto it and squeezed hard. I heard whatever had done this started to come back out into the hallway. Feeling extremely disturbed and honestly somewhat unprepared, I silently backed out into the main entrance hall. From there, I trained the CZ directly onto the intersection corridors and waited. I mean, there's no way he could see me, right? My heart skipped a beat with nearly every step that the guy took. He was getting closer. Closer. 3 more steps. 2. As soon as he came into my view, I emptied the entire clip. My accuracy's always been pretty decent, so I'd say more than half of them hit. However, he was still standing. And not just that, he barely even flinched. That's when I got a closer look at his face. All I can say is, nobody looks like that. In fact, nothing should look the way that that man did. His face was incomprehensible. Not like the conventional demon or mutant that you see in the movies. It was something that a human brain wasn't meant to come to face with. It didn't belong in our plane of existence. The eyes, they were constantly changing, morphing, if you will. It was as if the 2 irises both shared one large, empty pupil. And his mouth, if you can call it that, was twisted into a grin that seemed to wrap around his entire head, not just ear to ear. Those were the only distinguishable features, and the rest of his skin on his face seemed to be constantly shifting. Sometimes it would be smooth, and sometimes it would look as if hundreds of tiny worms were crawling under it. That thing looked directly at me and let out this deep, throaty laugh. It seemed to reverberate through the entire hall. I even had to quickly glance behind myself, because it sounded like it was coming from everywhere. I could barely think. I dropped the CZ and pulled the Beretta. I emptied 3 shots right into its head, but the monstrosity barely reacted. It just started laughing louder. Obviously, this creature wasn't going down anytime soon. I bolted out of the hallway and back into the main factory floor. My thoughts were a mess, but I managed to recall where I'd left the shotgun. I hastily made my way over there and picked it up. That's when I nearly had a heart attack when I turned around and saw that thing staring right at me. It was still laughing, in addition now to drooling this black, thick-looking liquid. Some of it got onto my hand and it instantly ate through my skin. I winced in agony before firing a shot right into his face. This time, though, it actually seemed to react. I noticed that the bullets had managed to pierce its skin, but only slightly. It stopped laughing, instead letting out a shrill, deafening shriek that nearly bursted my eardrums. It grabbed my arm and tossed me some meters away. I landed hard on my shoulder and I think I nearly broke it. However, I didn't have the luxury of letting it rest. I pumped the shotgun back and fired another shell directly into the creature's chest as it charged me. However, I couldn't move out of the way quick enough. The impact from the hit sent me flying about 10 feet back into the air. I landed awkwardly, feeling my ankle dislocate as I did. However, I was also fairly close to the bag where I was keeping the grenade. Maybe luck was on my side. There was really only one option left here. I scrambled over and ferociously grabbed for the explosive. As soon as I got my hands on it, I pulled the pin. I could already hear the creature coming back towards me. I turned around and rolled it towards the thing. I barely even got behind a pillar in time for the explosion. I didn't think the sound of it letting out would ever leave my mind. It wasn't just a shriek, not just a roar. It was as if all the air around me was being sucked into that thing's giant mouth and being distorted into some kind of otherworldly bellow. I crawled out from behind the pillar to see the thing scrambling around. It was missing a leg now, but instead of a bone sticking out, there was some kind of dark, shiny appendage squirming out of its severed limb. Taking no chances, I emptied the rest of the shotgun rounds into the creature's head. However, it still wouldn't fucking die. It was injured as hell for sure, but it just kept moving. Tired as hell and in pain, I stumbled over and watched the freakish entity climb up a wall and out of a open window. And that was the last I saw of it. Immediately after, I packed up my things, got into my car, and floored it home. It's been a few hours since, I'm sitting here now, still in absolute disbelief at the events that just transpired. I don't even want to think about what the hell that thing was. I tried contacting the people that had sent me after it in the first place, but they were giving me the silent treatment, of course. But there was something rather interesting that I saw on the news. It was a report about a murder that took place in the abandoned factory. That same one that I was just in. Here's the kicker though. The person that I saw getting splattered against the wall was actually a wanted enforcer for a local criminal gang. In fact, only a few days ago, another person had been murdered in our neighboring town. They searched this place and found staggering evidence that he was a contract killer. Just like me. But that wasn't even the end of it. 5 hitmen, criminal enforcers had been murdered this month alone, all in the same state where I was. The authorities were suspecting that these had been linked, and I do recall hearing about them in some dark web circles a few weeks ago, but I didn't think anything of it. I just thought that they might have been incompetent. I also watched a police press conference where some journalist asked if they might be some rogue vigilante on the loose. No, the officer responded. The manner in which these men are getting killed indiscriminately, that we've got something else on our hands. It's too brutal, like the work of an absolute unhinged psychopath. That thing is still alive. And if it comes after me again, I don't know if I'm going to get so lucky. Maybe I'll just hire somebody else to try and kill it. It's worth a shot after all.